There's a lot of frustration under the surface in China and possibly Russia as well. So I'm Richard Spencer. I'm a foreign correspondent for The Times.
Richard, you've been a Middle East watcher for many, many years now. We've been teetering on the brink of war with Iran for decades. For you, watching that play out, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean it is quite remarkable in a way. Perhaps as we look back with the benefit of hindsight, we'll be able to see a greater pattern emerge. I think that might be the case because, but yeah, we people have been talking about bombing Iran for decades. People have talked particularly about the nuclear program. There's been debates in both Israel and America whether they either could go it alone, whether they should do it together. Mostly the argument has been to hold off. Um, I think there have been two key developments. One is that Benjamin Netanyahu, who was militarily always quite cautious, he was a very aggressive leader politically, but he wasn't the most risk-taking prime minister the Israelis have had in terms of military action. But he has been emboldened by once he'd sent troops into Gaza, he's gradually stepped further ahead down the military path, bombing Hezbollah in Lebanon, taking out key sites in Iran. As I say, those bombing raids last year were much more successful than he had expected, and took out all of Iran's, I'd say, top-level Russian air defences. So he has really pushed that narrative forward. And despite all the talk in the election campaign of Trump not wanting to get involved in wars in the Middle East, you actually have an administration that is more pro-Israel and more bound to Netanyahu personally than any administration in American history.
And Richard, the whole world is holding its breath right now. We're trying to work out how Iran responds. It sort of has to respond to show that the regime is still strong. It can't just sort of be open season on Iran without some kind of consequence. What could the Iranians do next?
So I think I mean, there's two views on this. There's the sort of conventional view, if you like, and then there's my view, which is slightly different, I think, from
Give us
most
both.
people's in this one. I mean, the conventional view is exactly as you say, that Iran has to strike back, that it has to show that it's still strong. There are precedents. So when President Trump in 2020 ordered the killing of Qasem Soleimani, the general who oversaw Iran's sort of international proxy building efforts, if you like. He was a very important figure in the regime, even more powerful than that title suggests. And when that happened, Iran actually sent missiles at two American bases in Iraq. In fact, both I think had, if I remember rightly, had British soldiers on them. That was very signal. They said we will retaliate. It was pretty clear they were going to bomb American bases. They did it in such a way that there wasn't, in fact, a huge amount of consequence. They know what was killed. People were injured but not killed. That may have been luck, but it clearly wasn't an overwhelming strike. And it seems to have been choreographed in some sense, so that the Americans said, OK, we'll take that and we'll take the win with Qasem Soleimani and we won't go further.
We're told their missile trajectories were all unencrypted so that the Americans would know they were coming.
Yeah. So now Trump is much more volatile, clearly, in Trump 2, the second presidency. So that might be a riskier game. And also, it seems a bit pointless, right? I mean, this is a much bigger strike. But it comes at a time when Iran is also much weaker. It doesn't have these proxy militias like Hezbollah, really. So damaged are they? Trump has made clear that regime changes on the table. He could really go after Iran, cause chaos. That's why I don't think Iran will do any of these things. Why I think that Iran will actually take a much more strategic view. It knows it's in an asymmetric war with America. It knows it doesn't have the strength of Israel, let alone of America. So there's no point in trying to say we're going to go head to head with you. It's going to say that for us, survival is the key. And so I think Iran can say, well, our aim is if we're still there and we still have a nuclear program, then we have won, because your whole aim was to get rid of us and it. So we don't have to bomb anyone. We don't have to retaliate. We don't have to go head to head with you in a boxing match. We can just cling on, and so long as we cling on, we are in some sense winning this asymmetric war. I think there will be, therefore, longer term little markers to show they're still there. I think there might be a resumption of, say, terrorism, or against Israeli and Jewish targets. I think there will be more. There will be more difficult when it comes to complying with such obligations they do have under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, to which they're still signatories.
I suppose a lot of their ability to respond, how strong they feel in doing so, will come down to the sort of support they think they have from allies like China and Russia. Do we have a sense yet on whether either of those countries would be willing to stand up for Iran in this?
They'll stand up diplomatically, as they have done. I don't think they'll do very much more. I think neither of those countries really like Iran very much. I mean, it's a useful stick to wave at America. They have their own reasons for disliking what America has done in Iran. Other countries feel the same, of course. I don't think either of them need Iran very, very much. I think they think that Iran itself has not played a very good hand. So I don't think they're going to fall over backwards to rescue Iran. There is talk of helping Iran rebuild its facilities, including its nuclear facilities. China has invested hugely in the Iranian oil industry and gas industry, particularly the gas industry, actually. But it's never been a very happy collaboration, actually. The Chinese have always felt that Iran has taken them for granted and has not been professional in the relationship. And China is essentially a business and mercantilist country at the moment. It's not highly ideological. And Iran is obviously a very ideological country, and China doesn't really understand that. I sometimes regard countries like Iran as, why don't you just do what we did and give up all that ideology nonsense and just get on with making money and building yourself up? Iran won't do that. So there's a lot of frustration under the surface, I think, possibly in China and possibly Russia as well.
I'm Manveen Rana from The Story, a daily news podcast from The Times. Join me and my co-host Luke Jones for a deep dive into the big stories and investigations. That's The Story, The Times daily podcast that brings you one remarkable story told in depth. Listen every weekday on The Times radio app or wherever you get your podcasts.